Welcome to JonGetsGames. Today I'll be reviewing Tajemnicza Domostwo, or Mysterium if you don't understand my really bad Polish. This is an asymmetric, fully cooperative game brimming with logic and deduction. First I'll go over the rules and then I'll jump into my review. Before I explain how to play Mysterium, I need to point out that there are two different versions of this game. There was an original Ukrainian version and then a Polish version that came out, which is the one you see in front of you. However, every time I've played this game, I realize I've used the Ukrainian rules. So I'm going to teach it using that Ukrainian rule set, and at the end of the rules explanation, I'll explain the key rules differences between the two. The general idea for this game is there is this old house that is being haunted by the ghost who is the ghost player. And this ghost is stuck in this house because it can't leave this earthly realm until somebody figures out who did this really old murder. So the owner of the house wants to get rid of this ghost because it's annoying, and he brings in 3 psychic investigators for a full week to figure out who did this murder a long time ago. Mechanically, what that means is each of these psychics are associated with a single person, place, and object from the available options that we have in front of us. So red has their own specific set, green has their own set, and blue is going to have their own set. It also means that 3 of the people, places, and objects are not associated with any of the detectives. They're just there to make it harder to figure out which one of these locations, people, and objects are the ones that people want. So this gives you an idea of what the ghost player's area is going to look like. Obviously, these cards will be face down so that the detectives can't see, but you can see a person, place, and object is associated with each of the 3 detective colors. Now we start out having the ghost player try to make each person figure out who their person is. Once a detective has figured out their person, on a subsequent turn, they're going to work on their place, and once they figure out the place, they're going to try and figure out their object. This is done using this big deck of dream cards. Now, the ghost player always has a hand of 7 cards, and as you can see on these cards, there's all sorts of surrealistic things going on, like lots of different objects and colors and very odd dreamlike things. Now, the ghost player is going to look at their hand of 7 cards, and then they're going to look at the people first for all 3 of the detectives. And they get to choose the order in which they're going to give these cards. So these cards are the dream that they're giving. Now, they can give 1 to 7 cards to that detective, but they want to give only enough to help that detective figure out who they are. For instance, this card right here has musical notes on it, so I might feel like giving this card to the red player because they have a conductor. We've got this card with a lion and a woman looking off to the sunset. That's kind of adventure-y, so maybe I would give that to the detective, the green detective, because of this kind of adventure explorer lady. And oh, this, bunch of floating candles down a staircase, that's kind of like a magician magic. So I might give this to the blue player. Now, I might give just a single card to these people, or I might give 2 cards to try and build an association, perhaps with a color scheme associated with the card, or various things, because I could give this to the musician. It's got music notes, but it also has keys and shoes, and those might be things that the detectives are going to be thinking about. They're not just going to see the music notes. They're going to see everything going on, and they might not figure out what the reason you gave them this particular card. So adding a second card might help guide them in that direction. Once the ghost player has given a clue, let's say they give this card to the red player, now they draw back up to 7 cards, and they can keep giving these dreams to the different players until every player has received a dream. One thing to note, in the normal difficulty game, the ghost player is allowed to, up to 3 times in this game, ditch their entire hand and draw 7 new cards as kind of a helping mechanism if you just have cards that are not helping you out at all. Based on the difficulty setting that you're playing this game at, you will be able to do this more or less times. Once the ghost player has given dreams to all of the detectives, then they all wake up essentially and discuss their dreams back and forth with each other. So they're able to show the cards that they were given to each other, and then they collectively try to figure out which person they are associated with. So again, we have blue, who has these floating candles. They might be thinking, oh, that is kind of magician-y, so maybe it's this magician. However, we have a nun, and nuns are often in churches, and churches really like candles, so maybe that would make sense. But then we have a bear trap on this card as well, and bear trap, that might go along with an explorer, so they might be kind of thinking, okay, well, let's Let's move on to the next card and see the different options we have there. We've got this woman and she's exploring. There's a big lion there. So that seems pretty solid. People might be like, yeah, I'm pretty sure that green is associated with this explorer. So they take this token. Well, if green is happy with this, it's a collective discussion, but ultimately it's the player who's associated with that color who makes the decision. And they put their token down here. Next, maybe we come to red and we look at the things that we have going on here, and we might see the musical notes, which makes us think conductor, but we've also got keys and shoes, and well, I mean, this is a school teacher lady over here. A school teacher, she might have keys. The shoes might indicate there's lots of children, but let's say that people figure, nah, that's probably music. And let's say these guys, we think that the candles are more associated with nuns than they are with magicians. So once everybody has decided that these are the picks they have, we go and ask the ghost if we're right. As we of course know, in this setting, the red player would have figured it out correctly. So what we would do is take this card here, we put this back, we get rid of the dream card for the red player, and then what we've been doing is just keeping this card in front of the red player to show. The rules don't specifically say to do that, but it's made sense to us, so we know that the red player is associated with this conductor. We look at the green player and we say that's also correct, so this card would go away and this would go in front of the green. But then we go over to blue and the ghost says, nope, you guys are wrong. So what happens now is we take this blue token, it comes back, and the blue player is going to keep this dream card, unlike the green and red player who lost theirs. At this point, we look at the day track and we push it forward once to show that we are moving on to the second night, and we're going to start the whole process over again. However, this time, the ghost is going to give more clues to the blue player to have the blue player figure out which one of these four characters they are. Now, blue knows that they're not the nun, so actually they're just thinking about these three characters here. But then when the ghost gives the hints for the green and the red player, the ghost is going to instead be giving clues to have the green and red player figure out which one of the locations that they are associated with. So at some point, it's possible that a player will have figured out their person, their location, and after the location, they go on to try to figure out which object. They might have all three of those figured out while other players don't. At that point, that player is going to stop getting dreams from the ghost, and that player is just going to help the other players catch up to where they are. Once each detective has figured out through the process of each of these nights what their person, place, and object are associated with the murder, we can now go into the final phase where the ghost tells us which of these three people and in what place and with what object did the murder. So we see I have the marker set to 6. That means we actually have 2 turns collectively to figure out who did it. So let's talk about it. This final phase of the game is a little different than before. All the detectives are going to go to sleep, but they are going to have a collective communal dream. They're all going to dream the same thing. And what the ghost player needs to do is they look at their hand of 7 cards, and they need to pick out 3 cards, exactly 3, to point at which one of these people did the murder. Now, one of these cards needs to be associated with the person. One of them needs to be associated with the place, and one of them needs to be associated with the thing. However, when the ghost player gives those 3 cards to the detectives, they do not tell them which card is associated with the person, place, or thing. The detectives need to figure that out for themselves. For instance, this dream right here. Now, there's a couple different ways that I can see already that these could be interpreted. For instance, we could look over here and say that this organ right here is full of different pipes, and this underground layer with a bunch of glassware and stuff, those have kind of pipey things, and organs can sometimes be in enclosed brick type areas. We've got this Dracula vampire kind of character and this magician, and I don't know, they're both wearing black suits. They both kind of look like they might be performing. And then we've got this card here which is just really green, and this vial of poison is green. We might also look over here and say, okay, well, this organ is music and the conductor does music. This fork has sharp tines on it, and we've got a vampire who has sharp teeth, but we also have this gargoyle with sharp teeth. And then we have this pool area here, and I don't know, might not really be able to figure out how that's associated. Maybe it's a color thing. And spoiler alert, when I pull these out of that hand, I associate it with the red card here. And for those exact reasons, we've got the music for the pipes, we've got sharp teeth Dracula guy, and then you can also just go off color scheme. You could say, these colors are very similar in color schemes, and, you know, dreams, color, that might come into play. Now, before the ghost reveals what actually it is, all the players have to agree on which interpretation it is. And they do that by putting their pieces collectively on the person they say. Now, let's just pretend that they were not seeing the obvious connections and they put their markers on the incorrect one. In this case, the ghost player would just say that they're wrong, this dream would go away, and they would go on to the last night in this particular case. And they would get to do it again, but they would only have 2 different options to choose from. If, however, they had chosen the correct one, then they would have won, the game would be over, and the ghost is so happy it leaves the house and goes on to the next plane of existence. Now that you know how to play the Ukrainian rule set for this game, I'm going to briefly go through the 3 significant rules differences between the Ukrainian and the Polish. The first is that the ghost player in the Polish version only plays with 6 cards in their hand instead of 7. The second difference is that the detectives figure out the object first, then the location, and finally the person. And the final difference is that in the final round, once people have figured out their person, place, and object, you get rid of all the objects and places. You just have the 3 people in this case that are potential suspects, and the ghost gives them a collective dream. However, they give them a dream with some number of cards from their hand, but then they also show them the cards in their hand they didn't use, and the players need to figure out just which of the people specifically those cards are associated with. So the final dream has nothing to do with the location or the object. And obviously, if you don't figure out who the final murderer was in either the Ukrainian or Polish version after 7 turns or 7 nights, then you all collectively lose, and the guy who owns the house kicks you out, and he's going to invite some new psychic detectives the following week, and maybe they'll be better than you. For my review of Mysterium, I'm going to explain my thoughts on each item of this list, starting at the top and working my way down. So let's start with the positives. My favorite part about this game, positive number 1, is how you actually feel like you're interpreting dreams. It might just seem like, oh, some player's giving you cards and you're trying to figure out correlations, but it's very easy to fall into the theme of what's supposed to be happening where you're just like, guys, I just had the craziest dream last night. There was this crazy rat with stuff all over him and like dead cockroaches around, and then there were these buildings with buttons on them and this weird guy with wings on it, and everyone is sharing these crazy dreams back and forth, and then they're trying to figure out what they mean. It's such a solid theme integration into mechanics. It just blew me away from the first moment I started playing this game. I was like, holy cow, I feel like we're discussing our dreams. So, very cool. Next up is positive number 2, and that is that there is no quarterbacking or alpha player syndrome in this game. For those who don't know, it's a problem that a lot of cooperative games have, where one player either gets the game better or is just louder, and they tell everybody what they should do on their turn. And the most frustrating thing is that oftentimes this player is correct. And so you just kind of find yourself not playing. Like this person is kind of playing your game instead, and you're kind of spectating. And that is not a problem in this game at all, because there's no way to actually know what your dream means until the ghost reveals it. You could have somebody be very forceful and be very like energetically think that they've got the right answer, but somebody else can make an equally passionate argument for a completely different interpretation. And I just really like that. You can't just be like, oh, well, so-and-so, they're right again, I guess, like in other cooperative games. So I really like that you could just make your own decisions. Ultimately, it's up to you where you put that little pawn, but it's great, hearing other people's feedback, but it's on you. Positive number 3 has to do with the asymmetric gameplay in this game, where players are doing very different things, whether they're the ghost or the detectives, but they're trying to get to the same end goal of winning together. The ghost player has a kind of stressful experience. I mean, it's fun stress, but you are just looking at this hand of 7 cards, and usually it's not like, what are the best cards what's this great card I can give to these people? It's more like, what's the least bad option I have? Like, I have 7 cards, and I've got nothing. For all these people, I often found myself giving maybe 1 extra card hint to somebody because I desperately needed to draw more cards to have an option for somebody else, like, oh, the red player's almost got it, so I'm going to give him these 2 cards. Hopefully the second one doesn't screw him up too much. I just need card draw. So it's got this very interesting game going on where it's kind of like you, and you feel like it's all on you, and the pressure's there because, you're the one giving the cards out. But the flip side is the detectives, they got this completely other kind of game. It's almost like the detectives are playing a co-op, and the ghost is playing a single-player game, but they all want to win together, because the detectives, they're the ones discussing back and forth, and what about this interpretation, what about, oh, wait, that one, oh, I just noticed there's a scarf in the corner on this one, and there's a scarf on this, just that kind of stuff is very communal. Over here, I mean, the ghost player kind of feels very solitary, but that kind of goes with the theme too. Little ghost players like in the walls, like trying to figure out how to pull the strings for these detectives. Anyway, both roles play very fun. I've played them both twice. I played the game 5 times, so not sure how the math works out, but I've done both of them a couple times, and they're both great. And the fourth positive is how easy this game is to teach and play with non-gamers. When you think about it, this is kind of like a meaty party game. I've done this at least once over the holidays when I played with my family, where I just set up as the ghost, put the screen in front of me, started looking at my hand, and without really telling them anything else, just started giving a dream out. I gave it to the first person, and I just said, you went to sleep, here is your dream, they're surrealistic cards, disregard everything but the people. One of these 6 people is specifically assigned to you. Try and figure out what these 2 cards mean together to tell you who the person is, and that's it. And then I go back and I give the next cards out. And I don't even worry about explaining, well, next you're going to do locations, next you're going to do the items. I wait a turn or two to kind of feed these things in, and you just can just jump right in. I played with my mother, who likes games but doesn't like complicated games, and my uncle, who does not like board games at all. And he ended up being the most excited one near the end of the game, trying to figure out how this stuff works together. So I'm just really impressed with how this game plays with non-gamers. Gamers as well. It's definitely can be a gamery game if you ratchet up the difficulty, but specifically playing with people who are not familiar or people who are intimidated by games with lots of rules, this one works really well. For my neutral point, I want to discuss the ghost player's burden. They have so much information that they need to know in order to correctly give clues, and the game does not do a very good job of providing them with a way to do that. You kind of have to like make little piles of cards with like the red detective, blue detective, and you're kind of peeking at them and peeking at this, and then you're grabbing your hand of 7 cards and looking at all those, and oh wait, who is this? And it's difficult, especially when there's so many little things on each card. And just looking at those, you're not going to play very well as a ghost doing that, especially considering you need to know what the options are that are not associated with any player, so you don't give a bad clue that's amazing for red, and then you realize that, oh, there's another one out there, it's going to clash. So what we did is we actually made 2 player screens so far. I'm going to briefly show them really quickly. Well, the first one is something that really anybody can make. This took like 20 minutes or so. We just hacked up a cardboard box and scotch taped some paper around it, and it really lets you see every option that you need. So you can put little color discs down on the bottom for the person, place, and object, and also you can see the sets that are not being used by anybody. And you can really just look around and make sure that this hand of cards that you have, you're going to give the best clues. You're not doing it in order, in player order or anything like that, because there is no player order. You can say, oh, this is good for this, give the dream, draw up new cards. Another great bonus to this, actually, is as a ghost player, for me anyway, it can be difficult to not give things away with my facial expressions, especially when they're so close and then they go away from it, or something, something that they're supposed to be getting, and and I found myself kind of hiding behind the player screen, and they're like, "What's wrong with you?" I'm like, "Oh, it's nothing. It's nothing. I'm just trying not to give away any clues." It's like I'm hiding in the walls. Now, this works very well, but my girlfriend decided she wanted something that is a lot prettier, and she spent a bunch of time making this amazing player screen. And it might seem like exhibition, but I want to show you that there are really great options that you can do to really enhance the gameplay, where you can see all the different options, and then we got like nice pretty stuff out here, so it almost feels like you're a ghost hiding in the walls. Now, I don't want to sound like I'm just tooting my girlfriend's horn. I really want to show you that you can do a simple solution to really make the ghost player's life a lot easier and a lot more fun. Or you can just kind of go crazy and make something that's really beautiful, and this kind of stuff really adds to the game, and I really wish that the base game had come with something like it. And now the one negative point for Mysterium has to do with these 2 clashing rule sets with the Polish and the Ukrainian. On the face of it, that's annoying in general, because you're like, well, which rule set should I play? But a little bit deeper than that, one of them I think is vastly superior, and I'm worried about people playing the other. So I taught them rules using the Ukrainian. That's the one that I played for the most part. But the flip side to the Polish one is there are 3 main differences that I explained, and the first couple don't really matter. The order in which you do, people place object or object place people, it doesn't matter. The ghost having 6 or 7 cards, it's a minor difference. But that final stage, like the end game, where you figured out who, what, and where everybody's associated with, and you have to figure out who the killer is, it really just seems like the Ukrainian version is vastly better than the Polish version. You know, the Polish one, you just get rid of the place and the object, and you just do the people round again, but it's communal. That's so uninspired. Versus the Ukrainian one, where you have this whole new kind of like end game where you have to give only 3 cards, and one is associated with a person, one's the place, and one's the object, but they don't know which. And the explanations that I've seen detectives come up with playing the end game for Ukrainian is fascinating and really like mentally delicious. I've watched people just love that part because, oh, well, this is this and this, but then wait, if you actually turn this around, then this could be this and that. It's great. And I worry about people who don't even know that there's a Ukrainian version playing the Polish version and having this very lackluster endgame that I don't think it'll spoil the game for them, but they won't know about this great other option. So I know there's going to be an English printing. I hope that it's all cleared up, and I hope they stick with the much more interesting endgame. Now let's talk about replayability. This game comes with 84 dream cards, 19 people, 19 location, and 20 object cards. So that seems like, I don't know how to do the math, but it seems like when you did the math for figuring out the different combinations, it's going to be like millions and millions of options. So you'd think, oh man, this game has infinite replayability. And I don't think that's necessarily the case, but I think it's got good legs on it. I would not say the replayability is super high because we have already noticed in the 5 games that I've played so far, a couple times where people kind of like, oh, it's hard to describe, but sometimes it feels like, oh, more dream cards with water on them. Or, oh, wow, every single one of these locations is a room inside a house. Now, I get that thematically, you're in this haunted house and that's where the murder happens, and I get it. And some of the locations are like a beach or like underground, but it really feels like many of them are very similar. It's like, oh, this is the old brown room with a bear rug, and this is the old brown room with a chess set and a bookcase, and this is the one with the bookcase and a knight in armor. The differentiation between some of the rooms is not so great, but you know, thematically, I think, or design-wise, they were somewhat locked in. I've also found that, you know, once you go through the dream cards a couple times, especially as the ghost player, you can kind of be like, oh, here's the one with the spider on top of the chandelier again. 84 seems like a really big number until you play it a couple times, and then you're like, oh, I'm kind of familiar with all the cards now, and you lose a little bit of that, oh, amazing, as you draw the cards for the first time. But that's really not a knock on this game. I've played it 5 times. I can easily see myself playing this like 15 more times and not feeling like it's going to be old, but I feel like I'm already starting to get a little bit of a scratch in my head where I'm like, it's lost a little bit of that amazing discovery the first time you play the game. But once you get past that, you can just ratchet up the difficulty, and instead of it being all about this wondrous new mechanic you don't know well, it's now a mechanic that you really get, and you can delve into the difficulties of it. So I'm not concerned about the replayability, but I don't think it's necessarily astronomical. And now let's talk player count. Mysterium plays 2 to 7 players. I've only personally played the 4, 5, and 6 player game, but I have some opinions about the other counts as well. I personally think that this game plays best with 4 detectives and 1 ghost, so a 5-player game. But that also means that I think that when you have more people playing the game, so if you have 6 people or 7 people, I think you should keep the same amount of detectives. I think you should keep it at 4 detectives and then just have 1 or 2 people just spectate, but actively spectate. Because you can stand there or sit there and try and come up with theories along with everybody else, even if you don't personally have a detective in front of you. Now, the 6-player game I played, it played well. I would do that again if everybody wants to have their own detective. But I really feel like if we have 7 people, I'm just going to say, listen, somebody has to participate while not having their own detective. Because the ghost player has such a huge burden. They have to give a dream to every single person. So if they're giving 6 dreams a turn, every single turn, the game's just going to go long. And that poor ghost player's brain's just going to explode out of their heads because it's kind of stressful. And that's just really adds on to the stress without adding fun. And the 2 to 3 player game, I imagine they play well. But again, I think the strength is in that discussion of detectives, and you're not really going to have that at all with a 2-player game because it's just one-on-one, even though that one player plays 2 detectives. And then the 3-player game, there's 2 people with detectives. I'm sure they're fine, but I really like the 4 detectives, 1 ghost setup for this game. In conclusion, it's probably no surprise that I love this game for all the reasons I've stated before, but also in particular that it's just a great group experience. You know, like I said, it's a meaty party game. It's just great being able to try to figure the stuff out together and know that even the ghost player wants you to figure it out. It's a very positive experience, and I played it with people who don't really like aggression or like attacking other people, and they love this kind of setting. And I also played this with people who just love puzzles and logic, and that is just oozing out of this game because the ghost player is building puzzles and the detectives are trying to solve them, essentially. And it just works really well. As I said, I played it with my family who's not into complicated games in the slightest, and they were just really energetic and jazzed about it. We ended up winning that game and they were so excited. I'm looking forward to playing it with them again, and I continue to look forward to playing this with everybody pretty much. It's seeing a lot of play in my gaming group, and I don't think that's going to slow down. Obviously, we put a bunch of time into building ghost player screens to enhance the experience of the game, and that just shows you how excited we all are for it. So I strongly suggest you check this game out. I know the American or the English version won't be ready until, I believe, August of 2015, but the Polish version is out right now, and as you probably saw in the rule set, it is completely language independent. So you just throw out the rule book, print out an English version, and you've got this amazing game with a kooky name on the front of the cover, and I really don't think you're going to go wrong with it. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you'd like to see more like it, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, and thanks for watching.